Joining us now here on Third Rock Radio is veteran NASA astronaut Bruce Melnick. He has spent more than 300 hours in space. He flew on 2 space shuttles, and now he does a ton of great work with the Kennedy Space Center. Bruce, thanks for joining us today.
Well, it's good to be here, and it's always fun to be working at the Kennedy Space Center.
I was going to ask you, there's a lot going on there. I want to dive into everything happening at the Kennedy Space Center, but I want to talk about your career because before you became a NASA astronaut, you had a tremendous career with the U.S. Coast Guard, a very decorated career.
Well, I sure did, and I was very fortunate. I got to do a lot of things in the Coast Guard, got a lot of opportunities to be stationed in different areas, and did some pretty amazing flying when I was up in Alaska, which was a couple tours before I became an astronaut. And then I got to be the chief test pilot for the Coast Guard's new helicopter, the H-65 Dolphin.
Oh, wow. So you had a lot of experience there. Now, is that a common transition going from the Coast Guard to NASA? Is that a common path for a lot of people?
Well, I was the first one, and then there's been one other astronaut, Dan Burbank from the Coast Guard. He followed me a couple classes later, and so there's been 2 of us. So it's not a common path at all.
I wouldn't think so, but it sounds exciting because you had excitement as a helicopter pilot, and then as someone who went into space.
Yeah, it's been awesome, and I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. I mean, you think about how, since 1961, when we first, Alan Shepard first went flying, I was in the 6th grade back then. There's still only been 600 people that have flown in space, and that's counting all the people that have paid for trips and the Russians and the taikonauts and everybody else. And I got to do it twice, so I really feel like I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet.
Well, that's awesome. And you were able to fly aboard the space shuttle. You were on Discovery, as well as the maiden flight of the Endeavour space shuttle.
That's right, and Discovery was the real workhorse. She flew more than any of the other space shuttles, and myself and Tom Akers were the first members of our class to fly back in 1990, and that was the 11th flight of Discovery, and we launched a satellite called Ulysses into a polar orbit around the sun. Mm-hmm. Very textbook mission, 4 days up and back. Kick the satellite out on its way, but my second flight, which was the maiden voyage of Endeavour, was really an experience.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Evidently, there was you had to recapture a satellite or something along those lines, and you had the first ever 3-person spacewalk to recover it. Correct?
That's absolutely right. We took, first of all, before I ever flew in space, all the astronauts, when they're not flying, we have what's called technical assignments or collateral duties. And one of my collateral duties was to be the astronaut office representative out in California while they were building Endeavour. Mm-hmm. And so I joked around about how I was going to be the first I'll be on Endeavour's first flight, thinking that I wouldn't fly for years later. But anyway, that came true. But I got to see Endeavour being put together, which was an experience to start with. And then to be selected to fly on our first flight was just amazing. And it was the flight that everybody wanted to be on. We were going to go up and do an engine change on a satellite that was in the wrong orbit, at 17,500 miles an hour. And so here we had this brand new spaceship, and Dan Brandenstein was our commander, and he happened to be the chief astronaut at the time, who is the person that's selected to go on these flights. And of course, it being the flight everybody wanted to go on, Dan got to choose himself to be the commander.
Of course.
and it was a real honor for him to ask me to go fly on Endeavour. It was quite a mission. We were scheduled to fly for 7 days. We were supposed to go up there and catch up to this satellite. And Pierre Thuot, I was the arm operator. Mm-hmm. And Pierre Thuot was going to be on the end of the arm with this device called a capture bar. And he was supposed to be able to just bump this capture bar into the back of the satellite, and it was supposed to grab it. And this satellite was 9,000 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And Pierre was going to stop the rotation with his capture bar. Well, anyway, make a long story just a little bit longer. Every time he touched the bottom of the satellite, it bounced off out of control, and we had to fly back and catch back up to it. We tried that for 2 days. The ground told us to take the 3rd day off, and we'd go out and try it again on the 4th day. And Dan and Chili and I were up in the flight deck scratching our heads. And Dan and Chili said, we've been able to maneuver Endeavour so precisely, so fuel efficiently, that we think that we can get close enough to where instead of having Pierre on the end of the arm, he and Rick Heeb can just be out in the payload bay and grab it with their gloved hands and stop the rotation of it. But then now what do? You have two guys out in the payload bay strapped in foot restraints, and how do you get this? And they grab a 9,000-pound satellite. How do you get it back on that rocket motor? And so I was scratch my head up there, and I said, hey, because Kathy Thornton and Tom Akers were going to do a spacewalk after that, we've got all the parts for 3 full spacesuits. Why don't we send 3 people outside? 2 people can grab it, and 1 person can stick the arm underneath it. And that's what we did.
Wow. And by the way, you're going, 17,500 miles an hour at the time.
Right. And that's a big number. And I always try to characterize it as, it's almost 5 miles a second.
Right.
But if you think of a common rifle bullet that travels about 2,500 feet per second, we were traveling at over 25,000 feet per second, or 10 times faster than a rifle bullet. And when you're up there, you don't even feel like you're moving.
Oh, that's crazy. That is crazy, but awesome stuff. Now, between Discovery and Endeavour, which one was your favorite?
Oh, of course, Endeavour. Discovery was so simple.
Right.
I mean, we went up there and we just did what we had trained for a year, and it all happened. And okay, that was easy. But on Endeavour, we had to think. I was going to say think on our feet, but you're floating around, so you're really not on your feet.
Right.
But you had to think in real time, and I hope I can share this with you. But
please.
I can remember the first time that Pierre went and stuck the capture bar on the bottom of the satellite and it bounced off. I thought of the old movie Animal House, and I said, 6 years of college training down the drain. We didn't know what to do. We had no solution for that.
But what's beautiful about the ingenuity of NASA, they let you kind of play with the idea, and look what happened. It worked out.
It really did. It really did. And it was, just a great support team. I mean, we floated this idea from space that, hey, let's, try to get 3 people to do a spacewalk. And there was a lot of reasons why that would be hard. The airlock was only built for 2 people. The communication system was only built for 2 people. So we sent all that to the ground, and the ground told us to go to sleep. We'll let you know in the morning. And the next morning, they woke us up with the theme from Rocky, getting strong now. And we said, okay, that's great. And they had brought in 3 other astronauts, Jim Voss, Rich Clifford, and Story Musgrave, and they brought them into the big swimming pool we have in Houston called the Weightless Environment Training Facility. And those 3 men actually validated what we said we wanted to try to do. And we woke up that next morning and we had a procedure, and that's what we went out and did the next day.
So while you guys were sleeping, they were doing a simulation and they worked it all out.
Right. I mean, the team effort, we're just the guys that get to pull, flip the switches and do spacewalks and operate the arm. All those other smart people are figuring out how to do it.
We're being joined by NASA veteran astronaut Bruce Melnick. Now, Bruce, let's talk about the Kennedy Space Center. It's, of course, summertime. There's a lot of places people are going all around the country. But KSC, the visitor complex, there's a lot going on this summer. And I wanted to ask you, I haven't seen it yet, but I've been hearing about the new, the Gateway attraction, and also there's the Spaceport KSC. Can you explain what's going on with all that stuff?
Well, I'll tell you, the Gateway is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
If you look at any of the other centers and the visitor complexes and what have you, they a lot of them have flown hardware. There are a lot of history involved, and of course the Kennedy Space Center visitor complex has all that. We've got flown hardware, we've got a rocket garden there and everything. But Gateway is about the present and the future. I mean, inside it, just when you walk in, first of all, the building is just immense and beautiful. But when you walk into the first floor, there's flown hardware in there. And you look up over your head, and here is SpaceX's Dragon rocket that has flown a couple times and is actually one of the boosters that sent the Tesla on its way to the sun. It's the actual rocket that did that.
Wow.
It's hanging from the ceiling. And then we've got an Orion capsule in there. We've got, and there's a lot of interactivity in it. There's a huge wall where it's got all the satellites that are active right now not only the ones in orbit around the Earth, but the ones that are going out into the universe. And students or people can touch that satellite, and they have interactive to where the satellite's going and what it's doing. And then the rides, there's 4 rides inside, where this is what you're talking about, the spaceport.
Uh-huh.
You actually go up like you're getting into an airport concourse, and now you're into a spaceport concourse, and there's video looking out the windows. You feel like you're walking through a spaceport of the future. And you go into one of the 4 concourses that can take you to the moon, to the asteroid belt, to the out into the universe. And it's actually a ride where you get in, and it's a 3D ride where you get put out into a 360-degree dome, and you get to fly to these different places just like you're on a space ride.
Have you done this? Have you taken a
Yes,
ride?
sir.
Did
Yes,
it
sir.
feel similar to your experience?
Well, I haven't been to Mars before, so I can't say
Fair enough.
but I'll tell you, I mean, when you get to fly around the surface of Mars, it's awesome.
That sounds great.
It's really, really something to do.
Well, for details on that, everyone, you can go to KSCVC and get all the details about what Bruce is talking about. Now, another thing that you do at Kennedy Space Center, Bruce, is you kind of you let people do interviews and meet and greet with astronauts.
We do. And matter of fact, one of my primary roles and responsibilities over there is to ensure that we have a flown astronaut there every day.
Okay.
And you can imagine that's pretty interesting in its own right.
Absolutely.
Having astronauts there. And we generally have a different astronaut there for anywhere from 3 to 5 or 6 days at a time. And they come in and they, throughout the day, they do a couple presentations called Astronaut Encounter, where they talk about their flights and what have you in a theater setting, and the audience gets to ask questions at the end of that. They also have 2 autograph sessions to where they'll sign anything that anybody wants to have signed free of charge. They'll autograph whatever they have. And then we also have a little add-on item that's not included with the price of admission, like everything else I've just talked about. And it's called Chat with an Astronaut, where you can have an intimate discussion in the morning or the evening or the afternoon with 40 or less people, where the astronaut just sits there and does a roundtable with you, the people, and you can ask. The whole purpose is for him to answer any question you ever had of an astronaut that's flown in space.
Oh, wow. Because in what I do, I get to interview, musicians and actors. But when I got the chance to interview people like you, I'm all over it. It's like, heck yeah, I want to talk to somebody who's flown in space. What did you say? Only about 600 people have actually done this?
Right. And the astronaut corps, I just realized the other day, another astronaut, Jerry Ross, had done some research, and there's still been only something like 336 NASA selected astronauts into the American Astronaut Corps. So there's only 336 of us that were selected by NASA to fly in space.
See, you're your own rock star, Bruce. I'm telling you, you got it.
I'm my own luckiest person on the planet. That's the way I look at it.
Let me ask you this. Now, you talked about doing the roundtables with the intimate groups. Have you done one of these yourself? Have you been a part of that?
Absolutely. And matter of fact, when this is something that we brought on after COVID, we were shut down for quite a while over there, and we were looking at, okay, what kind of experience can we have that might be a little different than what we had before? And of course, when we came back from COVID, that we were still wearing masks and we were still wearing all this other stuff. So we started this chat where the astronaut would be like a little bit removed up on the stage.
Sure.
And then the people would ask questions. But now that's all been more relaxed, depending on the size. We've had, some groups, there's been, only 10, 15 people there. It's rare that we even have 40 people. But the astronaut gets right there in it. And to answer your question, yes, I did it as like the prototype, or I was the wanted to see how it went. I was the beta test case.
Well, that's what I wanted to. What was the craziest question that somebody asked you?
It's amazing how little some people know. The first, one of the craziest questions you get. Well, it's not a crazy question. They're all good questions, but some of them are like, did you walk on the moon? Well, no, there's only been 12 people that walked on the moon. Did you see? Everyone wants to know. Did you see an alien out there? Do you believe in aliens? And they're interesting questions, and
Well, now I've taken the bait, Bruce. Do you believe in aliens? I got to know.
Well, I don't know if you want to call them aliens, but the way I look at it is that if you look at our solar system
Yes.
and you think about all the jillions of stars you can see out there, and then the Hubble Space Telescope has shown us that for every star you see out there, there's that many more galaxies.
Right.
And now you see what the James Webb Telescope has shown us, and they've shown us that there's just that many more trillions of galaxies out there, and we don't know if space is infinite or not. If you think about how almost every star, because of the way stars are formed and what we know, probably every star has planets around it. So you take that number of stars and galaxies and multiply that by the number of planets. For me to think that there's not other intelligent life out there, I mean, that to me is impossible.
I'm with you.
There's got to be other life out there. Now, the question is, have they visited us yet? And especially has there been, especially with the new study group that's been commissioned, and some of the videos we've seen, some of our fighter pilots when they're flying their aircraft out there, there's some stuff out there that's unexplained.
Yeah.
But I can't say that I've seen it.
Okay.
I have not seen it myself.
Fair enough. Bruce Melnick, thank you so much for joining us today on Third Rock Radio. Again, get all the details about Kennedy Space Center and the visitor complex. Just go to kscvc.com. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.